welcome back to Media and More with the Mediocre Modeler. Sooner or later we're going to have to get to the end more, but right now we're on episode 3 of Obi-Wan. Well, we open up, if you remember last time, previously on Obi-Wan. He had just got done confronting the third sister, and she told him Anakin is still alive, and that just really messed him up. Because they're on the shuttle, and they're on their way to this mining colony, and it opens with Obi-Wan trying to meditate. And we've seen him try to meditate 2 or 3 times, and he's just not getting it done. But the meditation walks us into the opening. We get introduced to Vader as Vader, because before all we saw was Anakin's head in the bacta tank, but no armor. Just, he had the thing over his mouth, he's in the tank, and he opens his eyes. Okay? So the opening sequence is mainly our introduction to Vader, and I feel like it's trying to reintroduce the menace of Darth Vader, because there's nothing like your first introduction to Darth Vader. I can't say that I was completely fearful when I first saw him on the screen, but by the time we get to the end of Star Wars: A New Hope, I can definitely say I was just like, ooh, yeah, that's somebody I don't want to mess with. And that would always be my argument for anyone who, whenever they argue about the order in which you should view it, should you view it in the order of release date or review it in the order of timeline. The only reason I don't like the timeline is by the time you do get to Darth Vader in the suit, I personally feel you just don't feel that menace. But when you catch him on A New Hope, he walks in there, boom, Vader. Alright? Which is a little bit my problem, because I can tell that Hayden Christensen is not as tall as the original actor for Darth Vader. Don't get me wrong, he looks good in the suit, or the suit looks good on screen, and I can't fault that. They've done a fabulous job with that. Darth Vader in his prime, in his youth. But I just a bit, you just need a bit not too tall. So there's not much we can do about that. But let's get back to the story. The third sister is reporting to Lord Vader on Mustafar that Obi-Wan will be caught and he will pay for his crimes for killing the Grand Inquisitor. So she's trying to pin his death, the Grand Inquisitor's death, on Obi-Wan. For all the menace that is not there in the Hayden Christensen performance of Darth Vader in body and mannerism, the menace is definitely there when it comes to the voice. The voice of James Earl Jones. And I gotta tell you, for whatever reason, okay, up until this point, he had not spoken. So in the back of your head, I'm thinking Hayden Christensen, they're going to do something with his voice, blah, 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 blah. But when James Earl Jones' voice comes through that mask, that's where the chill, because it's like I had forgotten, and when he started to speak, I almost took a breath. So part of it's working. And that's the kind of menace that I'm talking about. It's just when your voice can carry that much, and it also brought me to the realization that James Earl Jones may not be around he's not going to be around forever. And I hope when that day happens, they stop voicing Darth Vader. It's, you could argue, I would like to say that, but I would have said the same thing about Peter Mayhew and Chewbacca. And I don't know the new gentleman that's doing Chewbacca. The things that he's done, I've gotten used to. I've enjoyed his performance as Chewbacca. So I guess I can't say that, but maybe by the time that comes around, it'll be time to retire Lord Vader, and maybe if we're lucky, we'll have something a little bit different. If we're lucky. Obi-Wan can't meditate, or his meditations aren't relaxing, and I would assume he goes into fixing Lola for Leia as much to relax himself as to give something for Leia, because we get the well overused "Are we there yet?" trope, which is you anytime you have a kid in a travel, you expect it anymore. But the thing about it is that conversation leads into the more important conversation about the Force. Leia says, "Are we there yet? Can't you use the Force to make this ship go faster?" He doesn't. The Force doesn't work that way. Well, she doesn't know. She's like, "Well, how does it work? What's it like?" And Obi-Wan's description is, do you know what it's like to be afraid in the dark? And how do you feel when you turn on the light? Safe and secure. That's what the Force feels like. I like that description of the Force. That is a very comforting and beautiful explanation of the Force. As long as you're on the light side. I guess you could say that it would be the same on the dark side, but you would replace maybe security with power. So in a way, it's still kind of the same thing. Once the ship lands, they have to sneak off the transport, past an R5 droid and some load droids, and get to their rendezvous point. As they're going down the road, you can see little work sites off to the side where you may have a couple of settlers and a couple of stormtroopers, and Obi-Wan is just devastated. This used to be such a beautiful planet, and before the Empire came and ravaged it. You can also see how Leia is starting to get a good idea of what the real world is like outside of the palace walls. Obi-Wan does kind of snap at her because Obi-Wan's like, we have to get to the rendezvous point, and if we can trust him. He's very skeptical. I think the third sister really got into his head, and he's still holding on to a lot of the anger from the past. And Leia's she's happy. Well, why would he lie to us? And Obi-Wan just snaps at her, just like, not everyone's trustworthy. Like, oh, Obi-Wan. And she's just like, hey, buddy, chill. I'm just walking here. I'm trying to get to the same place you are. So, they're just like, okay, let's get there. Cut to the Inquisitor ship flying towards, planet name please, the Inquisitorius, which is the big, tall, thin, black thing on an ocean planet, which is impressive. I will say this: never before have I wanted to do like a bad guy costume And I'm really, really entertaining the idea of doing an Inquisitor next year for my cosplay at Winterfest. I just like the shoulder pauldrons with the black Imperial logo. It's just being able to design your own Inquisitor costume. Okay, here's the thing. I'm not doing the teeth. I wouldn't do the teeth. I wouldn't do the eyes. Anything with contacts, although that would be fun. But yeah, I'm not doing anything with the eyes, and I'm not painting my face gray. It's just not going to happen. But she walks into the room with the other two Inquisitors, and my problem with the Inquisitors is they act like a bunch of spoiled brats fighting over daddy's riches, I'm trying to be the favorite so I can be in control. I mean, I guess that's kind of what they're trying to convey, but the fifth brother does, he does show his menace. He uses the Force to force the third sister down towards the table or whatever, until she tells, well, I've talked to Lord Vader. Do you want me to listen to you or you want me to listen to Vader? Your choice. And she wants him to send out probes. Much like when she was talking to Vader before, at the end of the conversation, if I don't catch Kenobi, you will not live to regret it. I would have added to her, she just like winks out, and I would have had her just kind of, as you will, Lord Vader, or something. I would add a little bit something. There was just a little bit something missing there. Whereas in this situation where she's talking to the other two Inquisitors, it's her cadence that throws me off, because she says, launch the probes, do it now. And therefore it doesn't work for me. I really want it to. I want her to just come off like a complete bad beep. But hey, I'm armchair Obi-Waning again, so it is what it is. But the following scene of them launching the probes, I think they showed it because they could. Now, to me, why would they need to send the probes from that planet out into God knows how far? Why wouldn't you just have a ship that's in the area send a probe? Unless you could argue the probes from the Inquisitorius are special or whatever. It just seemed like that scene was there just to kind of show. We're showing this because we could. So, but moving on. This is where it really starts to get interesting. Leia and Obi-Wan get to the spot, and no one's there. And Obi-Wan is just angry. Just like, I knew we were lied to. I knew we can't trust anybody. We're on our own. And Leia, being the optimist at this point, just like, well, if we're on our own, we're going to need some help. Enter Frick, mole-face guy. Tell you what, anybody who was upset about there not being practical effects in Star Wars, or them not using them as much, cannot be mad at this character. He got the face of a mole, and every time he talks, his little thingies, blah blah blah. Words are coming out of his mouth, but his mouth is just barely moving. His little whiskery things are moving more to the cadence of his speech than his actual mouth and lips, and he's got the long. I'm sure they're like claws, like he's driving the transport, and Leia waves him down, and Obi-Wan's running behind her saying, "Remember, you don't talk." She's like, "I don't talk or I can't talk." "Well, you don't talk." And they get up to the transport, and the first thing, "Hi, my name's Luma. we need a ride. We're on a trip and we got lost." "Father?" Well, she does slip a little bit, because she first says, "This is my friend, father. This is my father, Orden. Hey, you want to say hello?" And he turns into the one who doesn't talk. It's really kind of funny, It's like, "Well, hey, jump on board. I'll get you where you're going." And as Obi-Wan gets on, there's like a little flag on the back of the transport with a hastily painted Imperial cog on there. So he knows they're in trouble. Drive up the road a little bit, and there's some stormtroopers, out in the field. "Hey, what's going on, boys? Our transport's late again." "Well, jump on. I'll get you where you're going." So 2 sit on one side, 2 sit on the other. Now, the one I get, they have to stay in camera, so you've got Leia and Obi-Wan, and then the 2 stormtroopers across from him, and then the other two stormtroopers, which don't say anything through the whole scene. He sits right down, right next to Obi-Wan. I'm just like, all this room, and you gotta sit right there, really? So, I mean, they weren't looking at them suspiciously at that point, so there was no reason for intimidation. One thing I did, just out of hand, as the first stormtrooper, the one that talks the most through this whole in exchange, as he walks onto, he kind of has a little bit of a swagger to him, and for whatever reason, it reminded me of that video of the stormtroopers dancing. He just kind of had just a little bit too much rhythmic swagger to him. So they're on their way, and so he's like, "Well, you know anything about a Jedi? And what are you, a miner?" Like, "No, I'm a farmer from Tull." And they're trying to deflect. He's, "Oh, I wouldn't know a Jedi if I saw one." And Leia speaks up, and she's just like, "Well, how do you know there's even a Jedi on this planet?" Now, they told him her name was Luma. And so he goes, "Leia, they know what they're doing." And the stormtrooper goes, "Wait a minute, you called her Leia. I thought you said her name was Luma." Obi-Wan quickly recovers, and very well, like, because he's experiencing, sometimes when I look into her face, I see her mother's face, and her mother's name was Leia. Like I said, I get confused. So, and he's, as I said, it's been a difficult time. And then, the stormtroopers kind of back off like, "Okay." Kind of like, "Yeah, we are kind of making the galaxy a little bit difficult for everyone, so I'll give you that one." They get off, and then Leia is there looking at him, and he's like, "What?" And she's like, "Are you my?" No, she's. You knew her, didn't you? You knew my. Well, that was just a story. Like, no, you knew her. "Are you my real father?" And he says, "I wish I were." And I, in a way, you can just see it. You can see that he would be happy to have been her father, because of the rambunctiousness and everything we're learning little Leia is. There's a level at which he admires that. I mean, because it reminds him of, Anakin and Padme. But it's actually a very touching scene. She's like, "Well, she's like, I think about what they were like." And then you get a little bit of background on Obi-Wan. He's just like, well, I remember, I was taken as a young child too. I remember glimpses, my mother's shawl, my father's hands, and I think I even have a little brother. But then I had a new family, just like you. And just little by little, these little things are helping to knit their stories together. I think it really helped Leia. So just so that she, yes, I am keeping, because she keeps saying, you keep keeping things from me. You're not telling me everything. So she's just a little bit too intuitive for a 10-year-old. And they're not, it doesn't feel like they're pushing that off as to being part of the Force. But it was a really good scene. Then we get to the gate. There's a gate, stormtrooper checkpoint, and it's got 3 laser beams, like a laser fence, keeping people from just going through. Frick says, oh, hey, we're just at a checkpoint. I'll talk to these guys. We'll be through in a minute. Just give me a second. Frick gets off the transport, goes over and, has his idle small talk. And by the way, you might want to talk to these guys. Couple of strangers, Oh no, Frick. And I was just getting ready to like you. But, whatever. They go back there and they get Obi-Wan and Leia off the transport. And as he's coming down the ramp, he unclips his blaster. And you hear the pro droid. I'm like, oh no. And again, okay. I hate to say this, but the probe droid has more menace than our Inquisitors. Because I heard it before I saw it, and I'm like, oh God. So I really need you guys to. Okay, so Obi-Wan, physically, the moves are coming back. There are they're like 6 guards there. He takes out the 2 in front of him. There's one over on the passenger side of the transport. So he takes the 2 out in front of him. He turns around and takes the one near the front corner of the transport out. There's one up on the guard tower. He grabs Frick and hides behind him. Takes that guy out. That guy falls out of the tower onto our laser fence, cuts him in half. And I'm like, okay, that's a good fence. And then, so there's another, so the other trooper grabs Leia and he's just like, he's holding the gun all, put it down, put it down. Why didn't they pat him down to begin with? I guess you get so lackadaisical that no one's got weapons, but it seems like standard operating procedure, right? So Obi-Wan pulls a move, I'm going to put it down, I'm going to, bam, takes the guy out. Good for Obi-Wan. So all the guys are down, they go, okay. Hush, you. They go over to the fence. He, tries to shut the fence off. Well, okay. The fence is only blocking the road. They could have gone around. I don't know why they did. But, it won't thing, so he shoots if the gate goes down. They walk on through, and just as they are, another transport is coming up. 3 more stormtroopers and an Imperial officer. They all march down, and they're like, get on the ground, get on the ground! Again, he has the blaster in his hand. No one says, put down the blaster and get on the ground. But just as, they're getting, down, our Imperial officer shoots the 3 stormtroopers in the back and says, come on, let's go. and we're all in the same boat. Do we trust this person? Do we not? What do we do? But at this point, they really don't have a choice. Back to the Inquisitorius. They get the signal actually made it through from the Pro Droid because, they're like, lift your face so that, so the droid can see. And it sent the signal, and they're like, you were right. He is over on the planet, or in this sector. And I'll inform Lord Vader. And the fifth brother was like, I've already told him. He was most appreciative. I will give the third sister this. This is one time where I think she pulled it off, because she comes back and goes, you can take the credit, but we both know who's going to be standing beside Lord Vader when all this is done. She turns on her heel and walks out. I'm like, okay. At least, feels like, okay, you're holding your own ground. I'll give you that. Our Imperial officer's name is Tarla, and she takes Obi-Wan and Leia to a safe house, which is hidden behind the droid maintenance barracks in town. And, this is where they're finding out, hey, you're not the only Jedi to come through here, and the Empire's been hunting children. What happens to them? Nobody knows. A little piece of information you find out that Obi-Wan sees a scripture on the wall, and he sees that he said Quinlan's been through here, and so we can only assume that's Quinlan Vos. And I really like the character of Quinlan Vos. I like, they say that he's been helping smuggle the children. I think that I like his open, freewheeling demeanor that Quinlan has, but in one story, and that right before we switched over from Legends to the new canon, there was a book that was out that linked Quinlan, I do believe Quinlan and Ventress, which was a really good, because he had supposedly gone undercover, but at the same time he had turned dark. I really hate that character that I like so much. They always they make him dark, and I really don't think that's necessary. So I really hope they take the opportunity to rewrite this character in the new canon in a better light. I would really hate for them to see that he's smuggling children away and then he's turning children over to the dark side or something like that. We've got enough bad guys in the Empire as it stands. We don't need, you throw on top of that the turned Jedi, which are now the Inquisitors. I think we got plenty of bad guys. But just before they were getting ready to run off, Vader shows up in town and starts torturing people because he's looking for Obi-Wan. So Obi-Wan goes one direction, he sends Leia and the gal the other direction, and this is after the droid shed has been searched by stormtroopers, and they were getting ready to, one of the troopers was talking to the loader droid, and he can't respond. They're dumb. They can't respond. Well, the big hammer behind his back getting ready to bash you over the head, that kind of tells me, yeah, he understands more than you would think. But more to the point, the sounds he makes, and with the color and the shape of his head, remind me a lot of Bumblebee from the Transformer movies, which I'm okay with. But Leia and what's her name again? Tarla. Leia and Tarla go down the tunnel, and Tarla wants to go back for Obi-Wan because Obi-Wan's trying to distract Vader. And Vader, I'll give you this. When Vader's pulling people out of their houses and choking them and snapping people's necks, I'm gonna give you the menace on that. But as they're running down, the third sister, she goes to investigate on her own while they're sweeping the town, and she finds her way into the droid shop. She finds the secret passage. She sees the scratched Jedi logo into the wall and has a temper tantrum. I'm assuming like, why did they rescue me? That kind of thing. And she goes off down the tunnel. Skip to the end of that is she gets to the pilot before little Leia does, and she's killed the pilot, and she's gonna get Leia. So that's where that is. But in the meantime, you've got Obi-Wan. I don't. The setting is like a sand pit, or you've got these piles of dirt, sand, or whatever everywhere. And Obi-Wan is reluctant to use his lightsaber, and Vader comes around the corner, and he's looking all menacing and everything. And that first thing, Obi-Wan, she's kind of clutching the lightsaber, and he runs off. He's kind of like, whoop, and he runs, and it feels like it's kind of a slapsticky with him running around this quarry. It feels a little bit slapsticky. And he is trying to fight back, but he doesn't have all his skills. Obviously, Vader's playing with him. And he gets to the point where he dumps some of the ore on the ground. He lights it with his lightsaber, and he's going to drag Obi-Wan through the embers. He brings him a little bit in, lets him burn a little bit, and then he pushes him out of the embers, which kind of pushes the flame down. Then he tells one of the stormtroopers, "Bring him to me." Well, our trooper gal sees this. She shoots the trooper. Everyone's like, "What?" She shoots again and reignites the ore on the ground. Now, as a visual effect, it's pretty. You've got Vader standing there. You've got the flames. They take several shots. The frames silhouetting him. You see his face. You see the flames in his eyes. It's all visually striking. Doesn't do much to move the story along, as far as I'm concerned. And then on the other side of the flame, there's a lot of flame there, and they can't get around it. Our load lifter droid goes and grabs Obi-Wan so they can rescue him. After seeing Vader pull people out of their houses and choke people and snap people's necks and all this stuff, I'm left with the question, why in God's name didn't he just, once the droid picked up Obi-Wan, why didn't he just grab the droid and if he wanted him that bad, he could have had him right then and there. Now granted, that would not have given us the fight we wanted, but if he wanted him that bad, I don't understand why he was letting him get away. He can't be mad at anybody else for having let him escape when he had him right there. So, I'm kind of at a loss. There are a lot of good things that happened in this episode. And then there are a couple of puzzling things that happened in this episode. I'm still going to call it good. But, again, I'm left with questions. Okay, so let's do our body count. Fifth brother has 0 kills. The third sister has 2 kills. Darth Vader has 2 kills. Obi-Wan has 7 kills plus 1 droid. Not looking so good on the kill count for the Jedi, so I don't know. Wrong place, wrong time, I don't know. Anyway, this has been fun. We'll see you back here for episode 4 of the Obi-Wan series. Until then, we'll see you next time.
Pew 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 pew.